Thank you very much, Minister. That concludes the debate on UEFA European Championship Scotland Bill at Stage 1. It is time to move on to the next item of business. And the next item of business is a debate on motion 19614 in the name of Angela Constance on motion on legislative competence on the Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill UK legislation. I'd invite any members wishing to speak in the debate to press the request to speak buttons, and I call on Angela Constance to speak to and move the motion. Cabinet Secretary, up to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'm very pleased to open this brief debate on the Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill to rectify an oversight. I regret that Parliament has not had more time to consider the supplementary LCM. The original LCM, which covers the vast majority of the relevant provision in the bill, was debated and passed by the Parliament on the 26th of June. However, it has since become apparent that clause 53(6) should have been included in the original LCM and motion. Since the omission became apparent, officials have worked to develop a supplementary LCM covering the oversight. This was lodged on the 4th of November. While I accept that this is far from optimal, I am grateful to the convener of the Criminal Justice Committee for suspending the committee's standing orders to allow this debate to proceed and provide Parliament with the opportunity to consider the motion on legislative consent before the bill reaches its final form. Clause 53(6) amends Clause 25(1) of the Serious Crime Act 2007 by inserting the words, I quote, or an interim serious crime prevention order, close quote, after, I quote, order. This will put a breach of an interim serious crime prevention order on the same footing as a breach of a full serious crime prevention order, ensuring there is consistency of approach across the UK when dealing with those who might seek to circumvent the restrictions imposed upon them. It is important and indeed imperative to support the extension of clause 53(6) to Scotland in order to prevent criminals attempting to get round the conditions of an interim serious crime prevention order simply by moving jurisdiction. So in moving the motion, I recommend that Parliament consents to clause 53(6), and I move that the Parliament agrees that the relevant provisions in the Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill introduced on the 30th of January 2025 relating to clause 53(6), breach of interim serious crime prevention orders, so far as these matters fall within the legislative competence of the Scottish Parliament, should be considered by the UK Parliament.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. I now call Tess White. Up to 3 minutes. Ms White.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Today, Parliament is again asked to consider a legislative consent memorandum dealing with the UK Government's Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill. The bill as a whole is one which has given my colleagues here and in the UK Parliament significant concern, and it's against a tide of illegal immigration. This bill proposes very little in way of solutions, and it was reported just this week that 39,075 migrants have so far made the journey across the Channel this year. Labour have failed to deal with immigration and securing our borders. Yes, Mr Kerr?
I'm grateful to my colleague for giving way, because it gives me the opportunity to put on the record the views of many of my constituents that this is a thoroughly, badly thought through piece of legislation, and the most important defect in it is the repeal of the only measure that so far has been put in place to act as a deterrent to stop people trafficking and people putting their lives on the line and crossing the English Channel at the behest of some of the most vile and evil people that one can imagine.
Tess White. Thank you, Mr Kerr. Thank you, Presiding Officer. And Labour's recent announcement to house hundreds of asylum-seeking men in barracks in Inverness has alarmed us all due to its questionable suitability. And instead of delivering meaningful legislation to deliver solutions, this bill instead bulldozes across previous building blocks, such as repealing key sections of the Illegal Migration Act 2023. And meanwhile, in Scotland, the SNP continue to be out of touch with public sentiment. They have appeared to offer an open door to illegal immigration, an approach which is not in keeping with the public sentiments and would be damaging to Scotland. The Scottish Conservative and Union... So, Mr. Presiding Officer, will I get the time back?
Very briefly, Martin Whitfield, briefly.
Very grateful, and indeed briefly, is it right that the Conservatives' position is that criminals should avoid arrest by just simply moving to Scotland?
Tess White.
I think that's ludicrous, Mr. Whitfield, to suggest that the Scottish Conservatives, unlike Labour, remain the only party in Scotland that is serious about restoring the integrity of our borders through proper control. And I say proper control. However, we also respect the competencies given to the Scottish Parliament through the devolution settlement and the functions reserved by the UK Parliament. Therefore, despite our significant opposition to the bill, we will abstain on the motion. And I'd also like to take the opportunity to raise my concern about the process this Parliament has allowed to see the passage of this LCM. The Scottish Government has highlighted the serious issue surrounding this LCM. It's fundamentally one of criminality, as Mr Whitfield says. However, due to the lack of time, Parliament has disregarded the usual standing orders, skipped the stage where a lead committee thoroughly scrutinises the LCM and brought it straight to the Chamber. And it's much more than far from optimal, Cabinet Secretary. It's much worse than that. This is the third time this has happened. The disregard for our standing orders and normal process of methodical scrutiny, is of some concern to me and my colleagues. And whilst I understand that there may be little option left in the interest of time, I would urge the Scottish Government to ensure the disregard of our normal process does not become the norm. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms White. That concludes the motion and ensuing short debate on the LCM.